So Ajit Pai's plan to destroy the internet has been unsurprisingly opposed by the internet. I know, right? Now, he's of course gotten a lot of heat since he released his proposal to eliminate Title II protections as well as net neutrality. He's reversing the Obama's administration's decision on these net neutrality rules because, well, I mean, he's working for the corporations. He's working for Verizon. He's a former Verizon lobbyist. So, of course, he wants to get rid of these rules. And, of course, he's being opposed by people who don't want to pay more for crappier internet. And, of course, people are letting him know how unhappy they are across all different mediums, which include Twitter, by the way, who Pai is now going after for targeting conservative voices. So before I let you jump in here, Ron, I want to give you this event, what he said during an event hosted by the R Street Institute, which is a conservative think tank. Pai had accused Twitter of hypocrisy for its criticism of the FCC's plan to repeal the Obama-era regulations. He said, when it comes to a free and open internet, Twitter is part of the problem. The company has a viewpoint and uses that viewpoint to discriminate. Okay. Twitter isn't an ISP. It's a private corporation. Here's the irony of you complaining about a private corporation discriminating against people while also going to allow private corporations to discriminate against people.
Right.
And content on the internet. This guy's a jackass of amazing magnitude.
Well, what this is this is a straight up straw man. You know, do I appreciate some of the stuff Twitter's been doing lately? No, I don't. I don't like the fact that they're banning parody accounts. That
they got rid. Like I was going to mention that
political satire.
Like Peter Douche, he's like my favorite Twitter parody account, and they banned him.
Absolutely, man.
That sucks.
And we were lucky enough to interview Pat the Burner is the guy's name he goes by. We were lucky enough to interview him over on the Jimmy Dore show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, this is not like there's some truth in the whole thing with what's going on with Twitter and this whole idea that do we really want social media moguls to decide what is and isn't free speech? Well, of course we don't. But in Ajit Pai's case, this is a straw man because what he is doing to the internet, and I think this is an important point we need to keep reiterating. What he's trying to do to the internet is completely, at least domestically, completely revolutionary in an awful way. I mean, this is something similar to what goes on in North Korea if he has his way. People that are against net neutrality kind of spread this very inaccurate sentiment that, well, we've only had net neutrality since 2015 and the internet was fine before then. That's a very misleading sentiment, and here's why. The idea of net neutrality has been around since 2005. Those rules were assumed by the FCC, and ISPs played along as well. What we didn't have was actual Title II protection, and that was what organizations like Free Press, third time's the charm, Free Press and Electronic Frontier Foundation and organizations like that, they've been pushing for that for years. Give us the Title II designation so that we know that net neutrality is protected concretely, right? We didn't have that, so eventually the cable companies took the FCC to court. They lost, the FCC lost, but the courts kind of said if you designate this a Title II and you would have a good reason to do so, then, net neutrality is safe. And after the public twisted Tom Wheeler's arm and twisted Barack Obama's arm, we finally got the net neutrality that we needed. So it's very misleading to say, oh, net neutrality is not important. We've only had it since 2015. That's a very misleading sentiment, to say the very least. In some ways, it's not an outright lie, but it's incredibly incomplete and deceptive and in a very misleading and ill-informed way to look at things. So this would be just a completely unseen gutting of the internet in this country that we have never seen since the internet has been around. That's how severe this has the potential to be. And, there was a really good New York Times piece written that it may come down to the courts to kind of save us here, because it looks like he has the votes. He has the Republican majority as far as the votes go. People need to keep net neutrality trending. They need to sign every petition that they can, even if it's from someone you don't agree with. Hey, I signed Kamala Harris's petition. I don't agree with her on very much, but on net neutrality, we do agree. Same with, Al Franken used to be really good on net neutrality too. There's a lot of, and even places like Google and Netflix, are these people interested in net neutrality for their own self-interest? Yes, of course they are. It helps their business. But you know what? In this fight, take the unlikely ally and look at it as, hey, on this issue, we're all on the same side here. And that's good that we have some powerful allies, because we need them, because that's how important net neutrality is. It is that important.
Yeah, without it, I mean, our internet will look like, they use the Portugal example, right? Where they basically have packages, social media package, gaming package, all these different extra packages for extra cost. That's what the internet's going to look like, where all this stuff is now put behind artificial paywalls that are going to benefit the ISPs. Look, I don't want to pay more for internet. I already pay enough. We already pay more than pretty much any other country in the world. Yesterday I made the comparison between this and healthcare, because when you think about it, the pricing model is kind of the same. We end up getting less for paying more than the rest of the entire world that actually does have rules and also does have a lot of public utilities or public cable companies or public internet companies, I should say, public broadband. And by the way, speaking of public broadband, they have it in Kentucky, Tennessee. I got that wrong.
They have it in Chattanooga, and I believe somewhere in St. Louis they're experimenting with it. And
it's faster.
I don't mean to interrupt, but just as a side note on that, since you brought it up, in the long run, we're going to need a municipal solution. That's why so many other countries have so much better speeds than we do, and their internet is so much more affordable than ours, is because they don't have these corporate profit-driven duopolies controlling things. They have a municipal internet. At the end of the day, that's what we're going to need. But until that day comes, we need net neutrality. I mean, and it's one of those things. This could now, in Ajit Pai's proposal, they could throttle content. They could straight up ban content, and all they need to do is be quote unquote transparent about it. This is a huge pressing issue, and especially for independent content creators like you, Jeff, like me. Our livelihoods are at stake. This is huge.
Yeah, but Comcast promised that they will not throttle or block or anything like that.
That's right. I love that. I love that so much, where they're pushing for anti-net. That would be like the equivalent of someone being like, hey, I would never murder somebody. Would you ever murder somebody? No, of course not. I'd never murder anybody. Okay, well then we shouldn't have laws against murder, right? I wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. So we should just get rid of all these laws against murder, right? Like, we just shouldn't have laws against it, because I would never do it. Like, that's the equivalent. Does that sound shady to you? If somebody came up to you and said that in seriousness, wouldn't you be really creeped out? Wouldn't you think they probably want to kill somebody? Just like, hey, we would never do anything to violate net neutrality, so we shouldn't have these laws for it. Why should we have these laws? Yeah. We'd never do anything to interfere with it. We pinky swear we're Comcast. Would we ever lie to you?
Would we? Actually, they did lie to all of us, because right now they're setting up paid prioritization lines. Already they figured out a plan on how to do it. I talked about that yesterday in a segment. So, and they quietly kind of backed away a little bit from that promise. Well, we're not going to discriminate against legal content. Well, that can be taken as, well, hey, if we give everybody the chance to pay more for paid prioritization, for faster internet lanes, that's not really discriminating, right? Because you just have to pay more. That's all. So that's what they're trying to do. Look, when Comcast came up with that tweet, I remember doing that, responding with, "We don't trust you. We just don't trust you." Yeah. And there's a good reason why. And it's because these corporations are set up for one thing. They're set up to make money for their shareholders. They're set up to make money for the CEOs and their executives. And so they're going to do whatever they're going to do. That's why we actually need rules. That's why we need protections. That's why we need things, not to segue too far away from this, but organizations, agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? That's why we need these government rules and regulations and agencies that are looking out for us in order to protect us from predatory corporations.
Mm-hmm. And we can always count on Donald Trump to appoint people that want to get rid of those agencies to lead them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, so in IG, getting back to what Ajit Pai did, or Ajit Pai, this is just a straw man, and this is just an attempt because 76% of citizens favor net neutrality. So out of every 4 people, 3 of them favor net neutrality, and out of that 24%, I have a feeling that some of them don't know what net neutrality is, or have been grossly ill-informed on the topic, or our lobbyists for Comcast are part of that, elite group that actually wants to gut these rules. So yeah, there's a huge outpouring of public support for net neutrality. It's still trending on Twitter, and people need to be as loud as possible because it might come down to the courts on this one, and that'll be, that might be where the fight ends this time around, and then hopefully, switch things over at the FCC as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it depends, too, on what court that it ends up in. If it ends up in the Supreme Court, it's over with. They already have Neil Gorsuch, who is the most corporatist person that's ever put on the court. Thomas, just all of these. Look, we have the most conservative, not conservative, corporatist court in history. They ruled with corporations most of the time. So if it ends up in the Supreme Court, we're done for. But one of these circuit courts or one of these appeal courts could end up giving us a positive. We don't know. We don't know where it's going to end up. But I guess it's premature to talk about it ending up in the Supreme Court. But I don't know. We'll see what decision that they make on December 14th. But I'm not expecting a victory.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it is a little premature in some ways to go as far as Supreme Court, but it's certainly not premature to say we're probably, I mean, it looks like he has the 3-2 vote. Yeah. And I mean, hey, I've emailed all those people, and I encourage people to do the same, especially the 3 no votes. But it looks like he's going to have that 3-2 vote. So, yeah, I mean, it's but the public is responding, and hopefully even in the worst case scenario where we do lose net neutrality completely, hopefully the response is that we start building municipal internet now, because that would be a permanent solution for all this. Yeah,
and that's the direction that I want to see us go. So, and no matter what happens, we need to get on that.
Yeah, we inevitably will. Yeah. I mean, the question is how fast, how soon. And, I do have a feeling the one silver lining, if we do lose net neutrality, it would get us to that quicker. I think that's safe to assume. So, that's one kind of positive to take away from this very unfortunate situation that would be catastrophic for media democracy, for digital rights, and so forth. But that is one silver lining.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.